Jack Wilson, frozen in the bedroom doorway, found himself utterly captivated by the intense focus with which his wife, Megan Parker, was packing her suitcase. At 35, the high school physics teacher still marveled at her beauty. Her auburn hair catching the morning light like spun gold, her emerald eyes sparkling with a certain restless energy. Even after a decade of marriage, the mere sight of her could still make his heart skip a beat. "Are you sure you have everything for the conference?" Jack asked, leaning against the doorframe, his voice laced with a familiar tenderness. Megan paused in her task, a soft smile gracing her lips. "I think so. 5 days in Chicago. I want to be prepared for anything." Jack nodded, his gaze drifting to the delicate lace lingerie Megan was carefully folding into her bag. He recognized the exquisite set, a gift from their anniversary just last month. A warm wave washed over him at the thought of her wanting to wear it, even on a business trip. "Packing something special, I see," he remarked with a playful smirk. A faint blush crept up Megan's cheeks. "Well, you never know. There might be a fancy dinner." As she continued to pack, Jack couldn't help but notice the unusual care Megan was taking with her appearance. This morning, she'd spent 20 minutes longer than usual on her makeup, meticulously applying eyeshadow and mascara she typically reserved for date nights. Her hair, usually pulled back in a practical bun for work, cascaded in soft, alluring waves. "You're certainly going all out for this conference," Jack observed. "Must be some very important people there." Megan shrugged, avoiding his gaze. "Just want to make a good impression, that's all." Jack watched as she spritzed on the expensive perfume he'd given her, the same one that accompanied the lacy lingerie. The familiar scent of jasmine and vanilla filled the air, stirring memories of intimate moments shared. As Megan finally zipped her suitcase shut, a prickle of something undefined, a vague unease settled over Jack. He immediately dismissed it. This was Megan, his wife, his best friend, the woman he trusted more than anyone in the world. "All set?" he asked, forcing a smile. Megan nodded, rolling the suitcase towards the door. "I think so. I'll call you every night, I promise." She leaned in, her lips brushing against his in a lingering kiss that sent a familiar shiver down Jack's spine. Her fingers traced his cheek as she pulled away. "I'll miss you," she whispered, her voice a breathy caress. "I'll miss you too," Jack replied, his eyes following her every move. "Have a great time. Don't forget to bring me back a souvenir." Megan laughed, the sound light and melodious. "Of course. Love you." "Love you too," Jack called after her as she descended the stairs, the echo of his words hanging in the air. He watched from the window as Megan stowed her suitcase in the car and drove away, a final wave before she disappeared around the corner. The house felt strangely empty without her vibrant presence. Shaking off the sudden melancholy, Jack headed to the kitchen to brew some coffee before tackling the mountain of grating waiting for him. He had just settled at the dining table with a stack of physics exams when his phone buzzed, expecting a text from Megan confirming her safe arrival at the airport. Jack frowned at the unfamiliar number that flashed on the screen. A cryptic message read, "Your wife isn't who you think she is. Check the guest list for the Palmer Hotel." Jack stared at the text, rereading it again and again. A cold dread snaked down his spine despite the warm spring day. Who could have sent this, and why? His first instinct was to delete the message and pretend he'd never seen it. Surely it was some kind of prank or scam. But a nagging doubt, a sinister whisper began to take root in the pit of his stomach. He put down his phone, trying to focus on the grating, but the words of the message continued to swirl in his mind, an unwelcome intrusion. After reading the same question 3 times without comprehending its meaning, he pushed the exams aside with a frustrated sigh. "This is ridiculous," he muttered to himself. "I trust Megan completely." But even as he spoke the words, Jack found himself reaching for his laptop. Just to be sure, he thought. Then he could put this unsettling feeling to rest and get back to work with a clear conscience. He navigated to the Palmer Hotel's website in Chicago, scrolling through information about their conference facilities. There was a form to check event registrations, which Jack filled out with slightly trembling fingers. Conference name, Chicago Teachers Summit. Attendee, Megan Wilson. He clicked Submit and held his breath. his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. When the results loaded, Jack felt as though all the air had been sucked from his lungs. No matches found. "This can't be right," Jack said aloud, as if the sound of his own voice could somehow alter the stark reality on the screen. He tried again, double-checking the spelling. Still nothing. A growing unease gnawed at him. Jack opened their shared electronic calendar on his phone. He scrolled to the current week, Megan's conference clearly marked for the next 5 days. But there was another entry tucked beneath the conference listing that he didn't recognize. A&M Special Project. A knot tightened in Jack's stomach. The initials felt familiar. Then it hit him. Adam Reeves, the new charismatic gym teacher Megan had been spending a lot of time with lately. They were collaborating on some kind of interdisciplinary fitness and art project for the school. Jack leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He replayed the last few months in his head, small details he'd dismissed as insignificant suddenly taking on a sinister new meaning. Megan staying late at school several nights a week, claiming she had papers to grade. The new figure-hugging dresses and blouses she'd recently bought. Jack had admired them, but they seemed a little out of character for her usual casual attire. The way she'd become more secretive with her phone, turning the screen away when she was texting. "No," Jack said firmly, shaking his head. "I'm letting my imagination run wild. There has to be a reasonable explanation for all of this." But the seed of doubt had been planted, its tendrils of suspicion slowly wrapping around his heart. Almost against his will, Jack found himself drawn to Megan's home office. He told himself he was just looking for the conference program, that she must have left a copy behind. He rummaged through the papers on her desk, finding nothing but children's drawings and lesson plans. Opening the drawers yielded similar results. Jack was about to give up when he noticed a thick art textbook on the bookshelf, a small slip of paper peeking out from between its pages. His heart hammered against his ribs as he pulled the book down, a folded note falling to the floor. With trembling hands, Jack unfolded the paper, instantly recognizing Adam's distinctive, slightly slanted handwriting. "Can't wait for our special weekend. You are my muse and my passion." The words blurred before his eyes, tears welling up and obscuring his vision. Jack sank to the floor, the incriminating note clutched in his hand, his world crumbling around him. How could Megan do this? 10 years of marriage, a life built together, and she'd thrown it all away for what? A fleeting affair with a handsome new teacher? Jack didn't know how long he sat there, numb with a grief so profound it felt like a physical blow. Eventually, the initial wave of shock subsided, and a cold, hard resolve began to take its place. He needed more information before confronting Megan. He needed to be absolutely certain. Wiping his eyes, Jack returned to his laptop. He pulled up Adam's social media profiles, scrolling through recent posts. His stomach clenched when he saw a status update from yesterday. "Heading out for a refreshing beach getaway. Time to recharge and find some new inspiration." Oceana Resort. The Oceana was a luxurious resort about 3 hours away from their small town. Jack had always wanted to take Megan there for a romantic weekend, but they'd never quite had the money on their teachers' salaries. Apparently, Adam had deeper pockets, or perhaps they were splitting the cost of their illicit rendezvous. A quick search revealed that Adam's wife, Emily, had posted about leaving for a week to visit her sick mother out of state. The pieces clicked into place, forming a devastatingly clear picture. Jack's hand trembled as he reached for his phone. He needed help, someone to ground him in this nightmare and help him figure out what to do next. Without consciously thinking about it, he dialed a familiar number. "Jack, what's wrong?" Sarah Chen's warm, concerned voice, a former student who had become a close friend, immediately registered the distress in his tone. Sarah had a knack for understanding people, for seeing beneath the surface. "Sarah, I need your help," Jack said, his voice cracking. "Can you come over?" After a brief pause, Sarah replied, "Of course. I'll be there in 10 minutes." True to her word, Sarah arrived shortly after, letting herself in with the spare key Jack had given her years ago. She found him sitting at the dining table, his gaze fixed on the scattered evidence of Megan's betrayal. Sarah quickly assessed the situation, her sharp mind piecing everything together. She sat down across from Jack, gently placing her hand over his. "Tell me everything," she said softly, and Jack did. His voice was flat as he recounted the events of the morning, the unsettling message, the fabricated conference, the hidden note, Adam's incriminating social media post. Sarah listened without interrupting, her expression growing increasingly troubled. When Jack finally finished, a long silence hung in the air. Finally, Sarah took a deep breath. "Jack, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice filled with genuine sympathy. "But I have to tell you something. I've suspected something was going on for weeks." Jack's head snapped up, shock and a fresh wave of pain etched on his face. "What? Why didn't you say anything?" Sarah held up her hands in a placating gesture. "I wasn't sure, Jack. I saw Megan and Adam together a while ago in what looked like a very intimate conversation at the local coffee shop. But I convinced myself I was reading too much into it. They worked together after all. I didn't want to cause trouble in your marriage over something that might have been nothing." Jack nodded slowly, the anger in his eyes softening slightly. He knew Sarah would never intentionally keep something like this from him without good reason. "So what do we do now?" he asked, the raw vulnerability in his voice tearing at Sarah's heart. A flicker of determination ignited in Sarah's eyes. "Now we confirm it, once and for all. I have some contacts through work who can help us track Megan's phone location. If she's really at that Oceana resort with Adam, we'll know for sure." Jack hesitated, a sense of distaste washing over him at the thought of such a blatant invasion of Megan's privacy. But the memory of her lies, her carefully constructed deception, hardened his resolve. He nodded, giving Sarah the go-ahead. It took Sarah only a few tense minutes, her fingers flying across her tablet. She turned the screen so Jack could see the blinking dot, clearly pinpointing Megan's location, the Oceana resort. "What now?" Jack asked, his voice hollow. Sarah met his gaze, her expression firm. "Now we expose them. But you're not doing this alone, Jack. Let me go with you, for support, for safety." Jack started to protest, but Sarah cut him off. "I won't take no for an answer. You're not in a state to drive. We'll book a room under my name so they won't know you're coming, and then you decide how you want to play this." As Sarah made the arrangements, a strange sense of calm settled over Jack. The initial shock and pain were still there, a dull ache beneath the surface, but now they were overlaid with a steely resolve. Megan and Adam thought they could deceive him. He would show them just how wrong they were. "I know exactly how I want to play this," Jack said as Sarah hung up the phone with the hotel. She raised a questioning eyebrow. "Oh, I think so," Jack replied, a flicker of his old confidence returning to his voice. "And I'm going to need your help to set a few things in motion before we go." Sarah nodded, a small, knowing smile playing on the corners of her lips. "Whatever you need, Jack. Let's make them regret ever betraying you." Gathering a few essentials and heading out to Sarah's car, Jack felt a maelstrom of emotions churning within him. Anger, hurt, and betrayal, all tangled with a grim satisfaction at the plan forming in his mind. One thing was certain. By the time this confrontation was over, Megan and Adam would wish they'd never embarked on their little special weekend. Before leaving, Jack surreptitiously set up a live stream to the school's social media account on his phone, a silent preparation for the storm to come. He wasn't sure how he would use it yet, but he wanted to be ready for anything. As they drove towards the Oceana resort, Jack's thoughts raced. How would Megan react when she saw him? What flimsy excuses would she try to offer? And most importantly, how would he ensure that she and Adam faced the full consequences of their actions? The answers awaited him at the luxurious beachfront hotel, where his wife believed she was safe from discovery. Jack's jaw tightened as he stared out the window, the passing scenery a blur. Soon, very soon, he would have his answers and his revenge. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky as Jack and Sarah pulled up to the elegant circular driveway of the Oceana resort. Nestled along the pristine coastline, the opulent property exuded wealth with its flawless white facade and meticulously manicured gardens. Under different circumstances, Jack might have admired the beauty of the place, but now it served only as a stark, painful reminder of Megan's deceit. Sarah squeezed Jack's hand reassuringly as they got out of the car. "Remember," she whispered. "We're just a couple here for a relaxing weekend. No need to draw any attention to ourselves." Jack nodded, forcing a polite smile. He'd had plenty of practice masking his true feelings over the past 24 hours. What was one more lie in this ocean of deception? Approaching the reception desk, Sarah effortlessly slipped into her role. She laughed and flirted with the concierge, gushing about their much-needed romantic getaway. Jack played along, draping an arm casually around Sarah's waist, trying to ignore the sickening twist in his gut. "Here are your key cards, Mr. and Mrs. Chen," the concierge said with a warm smile. "Room 712. I hope you enjoy your stay with us." "Thank you so much," Sarah replied brightly. "I'm sure we will." As they rode the elevator up, Jack's heart began to pound in his chest. They were so close now. Just a few more minutes and he would come face to face with Megan and her lover. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. Sarah gave his hand a gentle squeeze. "You've got this, Jack. I'm right here." The elevator chimed and they stepped out onto the 7th floor. Plush carpet muffled their footsteps as they walked down the hallway. Jack's eyes scanned each door, searching for the telltale number 714, the room he knew Megan and Adam were sharing. Reaching their own room, Jack froze. Voices drifted from the adjacent suite, voices he knew all too well. "Oh, Adam." Megan's breathy laugh pierced Jack's heart like a shard of ice. "Tonight is going to be the most passionate yet. I can't wait to show you what I brought." "I bet it's that little red dress," Adam's deep voice replied, laced with a smug satisfaction. "The one that drives me crazy. God, Megan, you're insatiable." "Only for you, darling," Megan purred. "Poor Jack has no idea what he's missing. Sometimes I just can't believe how blind he is." A white-hot rage, searing and all-consuming, surged through Jack at her words. How dare they mock him like this? His hands clenched into fists, the urge to burst through their door overwhelming. Sarah placed a calming hand on his arm. "Stick to the plan," she whispered. "We've got them right where we want them." Jack nodded jerkily, allowing Sarah to guide him into their room. He paced nervously while Sarah swiftly set up their recording equipment, angling a small camera to capture the hallway and the door to Megan and Adam's room. "Okay," Sarah said, double-checking the view. "We're ready. How do you want to play this?" Jack took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "I'm going to knock on their door. When Megan opens it, you start recording. Can you do it discreetly on your phone?" Sarah nodded, pulling out her smartphone. "Consider it done. You ready for this? As ready as you can be?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Jack replied grimly. They stepped back out into the hallway. Sarah positioned herself slightly behind Jack, her phone held casually at her side. Jack raised his hand and rapped sharply on the door of room 714. There was a muffled sound from inside, then footsteps approaching. Jack steeled himself as the door swung open. Megan stood in the doorway, clad in a silk robe, her hair tousled, a flush on her cheeks. Her eyes widened in shock as she registered Jack's presence. "Jack?" she stammered. "What are you doing here?" "Surprised, darling?" Jack said, his voice dangerously calm. "I thought I'd join you for this teachers' conference." Megan's face paled. Behind her, Adam appeared in the doorway, equally stunned. "Jack, I can explain," Megan began, but Jack cut her off with a dismissive wave of his hand. "Oh, I'm sure you can," he said icily. "I'm just dying to hear how you explain being here with Adam when you're supposed to be at a conference in Chicago." Megan and Adam exchanged panicked glances, clearly scrambling for a believable story. Jack almost laughed at how quickly their carefully constructed lies were unraveling. "It's not what it looks like," Adam tried, his voice lacking its usual confident swagger. "Really?" Jack raised a sardonic eyebrow. "Because it looks very much like my wife is having an affair with a colleague. Please, enlighten me as to what exactly is going on here." Tears welled up in Megan's eyes. "Jack, please, can we talk about this privately?" "Why?" Jack asked, his tone deceptively soft. "You didn't seem too concerned about privacy a few minutes ago when you were mocking me. What was it you said? That I was blind and didn't know what I was missing?" Megan blanched, realizing they had been overheard. Adam stepped forward, trying to appear authoritative despite being clad only in boxer shorts. Look, Wilson, this is a personal matter. A personal matter? Jack interrupted, his voice rising slightly. I think you forfeited the right to privacy when you decided to sleep with my wife. Heads began to peek out of neighboring rooms, drawn by the escalating commotion. Sarah stepped forward, placing a steadying hand on Jack's arm. Maybe we should go inside, she suggested quietly. Jack nodded, brushing past Megan and Adam into their suite. Sarah followed, closing the door behind them. Who is she? Megan demanded, her shock giving way to indignation. This is Sarah, Jack replied calmly. A friend and a witness to your betrayal. A witness? Adam sputtered. What the hell is going on here, Wilson? Jack ignored him, turning his attention to Megan's suitcase. He deliberately unzipped it and began to pull out her clothes, folding them neatly on the bed. What are you doing? Megan asked, her voice trembling. Unpacking, Jack replied matter-of-factly. I've booked the room next door for the week. Hope you don't mind if I join your little getaway. You can't do that, Adam protested. This is our room. Jack fixed him with a steely gaze. Actually, I can. This room is booked under my name, paid for with my credit card. You're welcome to leave if you're uncomfortable. Megan and Adam exchanged helpless glances. Their romantic escape was crumbling before their eyes. Jack, please, Megan pleaded, tears streaming down her face. Let's just talk. We can work through this. There's no need for all this. Oh, we'll talk, Jack assured her, his voice devoid of emotion. We have the whole week ahead of us to discuss how you betrayed our marriage and made a mockery of our vows. But right now, I'm tired from the drive. I think I'll turn in early. With that, Jack walked calmly to the connecting door, opened it, and disappeared into his own room, leaving Megan and Adam standing in stunned silence. The next morning dawned bright and clear, the cheerful sunlight a stark contrast to the simmering tension that hung thick in rooms 712 and 714. Jack had barely slept, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts, plans, and possibilities. He'd spent most of the night coordinating with Sarah, preparing the next stage of their confrontation. Precisely at 9 a.m., Jack knocked on the connecting door. When there was no answer, he used his keycard to enter. Megan and Adam sat huddled together on the bed, looking as though they too had endured a sleepless night. They flinched as Jack walked in, Sarah following close behind. Good morning, Jack said pleasantly. Hope you both slept well. We have a busy day ahead of us. What are you talking about? Adam demanded, his bravado from the previous night noticeably diminished. Jack offered a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. We're going to have a little chat with Emily. I think she deserves to know what's been going on here, don't you? All the color drained from Adam's face. Emily, my wife? You wouldn't. Oh, but I would, Jack interrupted. In fact, I've already arranged it. She'll be video calling, he glanced at his watch, in approximately 5 minutes. Megan burst into tears. Jack, please don't do this. We can sort this out between us. There's no need to involve anyone else. You involved Emily the moment you decided to sleep with her husband, Jack replied coldly. She has a right to know. The next 5 minutes crawled by in agonizing silence. Megan and Adam whispered furiously to each other, trying to concoct a plan, while Jack calmly set up Sarah's laptop for the video call. Right on cue at 9:05, the laptop chimed with an incoming call, Jack answered, and Emily's bewildered face appeared on the screen. Jack? She said, peering into the camera. What's going on? Is everything all right? Hello, Emily, Jack replied gently. I'm afraid I have some rather unpleasant news for you. Adam and Megan are here with me. He turned the laptop so Emily could see the guilty pair huddled on the bed, their faces etched with shame. Emily's bewilderment quickly morphed into shock, then a raw, wounded expression. Adam, she whispered, her voice trembling. What are you doing there? You said you were at a training seminar. Adam opened his mouth, but no words came out. Megan buried her face in her hands, unable to meet Emily's gaze. With as much compassion as he could muster, Jack explained the situation. He told Emily about the affair, the lies, the teachers' conference, that was nothing more than a clandestine rendezvous. Emily listened in stunned silence, tears streaming down her face. When Jack finished, she turned her tear-filled eyes to Adam. "How could you?" she choked out, her voice thick with emotion. "After everything we've been through, I trusted you." Adam stammered, offering weak excuses and apologies, but Emily cut him off. I can't deal with this right now," she said, her voice breaking. "I need time to think. Adam, don't even think about coming home. I'll pack your things and leave them with your brother." With that, she ended the call, leaving a heavy silence in the room. Jack closed the laptop and turned to Megan and Adam. "I hope you're both proud of yourselves," he said quietly. "You haven't just destroyed our marriages. You've hurt innocent people in the process." Megan lifted her tear-streaked face. "Jack, please," she begged. "Don't tell anyone at school. We'll lose our jobs. Our reputations will be ruined." Adam nodded frantically. "We'll do anything. Just please don't expose us at work." Jack considered for a moment. Finally, he nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "I won't say anything at school, but in return I want both of you to sign written confessions acknowledging your affair. It's only fair that I have some kind of assurance." Relieved by this apparent reprieve, Megan and Adam readily agreed. Sarah produced the prepared statements and they signed them without hesitation. "Thank you, Jack," Megan said, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "I know we can work through this somehow." Jack said nothing. He simply took the signed statements and walked out of the room, Sarah following silently behind. That evening, Jack suggested they all have dinner together in the hotel's main restaurant. Megan and Adam were hesitant, but Jack insisted, saying it would be a good opportunity to discuss how they would move forward. The restaurant was bustling, filled with the cheerful chatter of vacationers enjoying their meals. Jack, Megan, Adam, and Sarah sat at a table in the center of the room, an awkward silence hanging over them as the waiter took their drink orders. Jack casually pulled out his phone. "Mind if I check my messages?" he asked innocently. "Just want to make sure everything's all right back home." Megan and Adam shook their heads, a visible wave of relief washing over their faces at the apparent easing of tension. Jack tapped his phone a few times, then placed it face up on the table. Unbeknownst to Megan and Adam, Jack had just activated the live stream to the school's social media account. The phone's camera now had a clear view of their table, broadcasting their conversation to hundreds of students, parents, and faculty. "So," Jack began, his voice carrying clearly across the noisy restaurant, "let's talk about your affair. How long has this been going on?" Megan choked on her water. "Jack!" she hissed. "Not here." "Why not?" Jack asked, his voice remaining calm but loud enough to draw the attention of nearby tables. "I think it's time we all laid our cards on the table, don't you?" Adam leaned forward, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Wilson, I'm warning you." "Warning me?" Jack retorted. "That's rich coming from the man who's been sleeping with my wife. Tell me, Adam, how does it feel to betray not only your own wife but a colleague as well?" Heads at neighboring tables swiveled in their direction, eyes wide with curiosity and shock. Megan buried her face in her hands while Adam looked as though he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "Please, Jack," Megan pleaded, tears welling up again. "We apologized. We promised it was over. What more do you want from us?" Jack leaned back in his chair, a small, grimly satisfied smile playing on the corners of his lips. "I want the truth, Megan. I want you to admit right here, right now, exactly what you've done." "Fine," Megan snapped, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, we had an affair. Yes, we lied about the conference so we could come here together. Are you happy now?" "Thrilled," Jack replied dryly. "And you, Adam? Anything you'd like to add?" Adam glared at Jack, his jaw tight. "This is blackmail," he growled. "No," Jack corrected him. "This is consequences. You both made your choices, and now you're facing the results of those choices." As Jack spoke, Megan's phone began to buzz incessantly. She picked it up, her face paling as she saw the flood of notifications. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Jack, what have you done?" Jack picked up his own phone and with a single tap ended the live stream. "I did exactly what I said I would do," he replied calmly. I didn't tell anyone at school about your affair. They found out for themselves. The reality of the situation crashed down on Megan and Adam. Their phones continued to vibrate with messages from colleagues, students, and parents. The live stream had gone viral within minutes, spreading through the school community like wildfire. You promised, Adam stammered, his face a mask of fury and fear. I promised I wouldn't tell anyone, Jack corrected him. And I didn't. You both did. Megan and Adam frantically tried to salvage the situation, desperately typing messages and making calls, but the damage was done. Their affair, their lies, their betrayal, all laid bare for the world to see. Jack calmly sipped his water, watching their carefully constructed world crumble around them. Sarah placed a supportive hand on his arm. I think I've lost my appetite, Jack said, standing up. Enjoy your meal. Oh, and don't worry about the bill. It's on me. Consider it a parting gift for 10 years of marriage. With that, Jack and Sarah walked out of the restaurant, leaving Megan and Adam to face the devastating fallout of their actions. The following morning, the atmosphere in the hotel crackled with a palpable tension. News of the scandal had spread beyond the school, reaching the local community. Megan and Adam, ostracized and ashamed, avoided eye contact with other guests, flinching at every ping of their relentlessly buzzing phones. Jack, on the other hand, was a picture of calm composure. He'd spent the night fielding calls and messages from concerned friends and colleagues, recounting his side of the story with quiet dignity and restraint. As he and Sarah were having breakfast on her balcony, Megan approached them, her eyes red and swollen from crying. How could you do this to me? She demanded, her voice raw with anguish. You've ruined everything. Jack sat down, his coffee cup pausing halfway to his lips as he met Megan's gaze. I didn't ruin anything, Megan. You did, the moment you chose to betray our marriage. Megan's face contorted with a mixture of anger and despair. You don't understand. I was unhappy. Adam made me feel alive. You were always so focused on your work, on your students. Don't you dare try to shift the blame onto me, Jack interrupted, his composure finally cracking slightly. If you were unhappy, you should have talked to me. We could have worked on our marriage. Instead, you chose to lie, to deceive, to make a fool of me. Sarah stood up, placing a comforting hand on Jack's shoulder. I think I'll leave you two alone, she said quietly, retreating into the room. Megan's eyes followed Sarah, a flicker of jealousy in their depths. Is that why you did this? You're sleeping with her, aren't you? This is all just revenge. Jack gave a humorless laugh. You really don't get it, do you? Sarah is my friend. She's been a rock for me through this nightmare you created. Unlike you, some people actually understand the meaning of loyalty. Megan's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her. What now, Jack? What are we going to do? We, Jack echoed, raising an eyebrow. There is no we anymore, Megan. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. As if on cue, Adam appeared behind Megan, his face haggard. We need to talk, he said urgently. The school board is calling an emergency meeting next week. They want us all there to explain what happened. Megan turned pleading eyes to Jack. Jack, please, you have to help us. If we lose our jobs. Jack stood up, his expression hardening. I don't have to do anything. You both made your bed. Now lie in it. Though, he added with a touch of sarcasm, I suppose you already have been. Adam's face flushed with anger. He took a step towards Jack, his fists clenching. You smug bastard. You think you're better than us. Jack didn't flinch. I didn't sleep with my colleague's wife. I didn't lie to everyone I know. So yes, Adam, I do think I'm better than you. And if you're smart, you'll back down now. Something in Jack's tone made Adam hesitate. The physical intimidation that might have worked before now seemed to bounce off Jack's newfound resolve. This isn't over, Adam snarled, turning to leave. Oh, I think it is, Jack called after him. By the way, I've already spoken to my lawyer. He'll be in touch with both of you regarding the divorce proceedings. Megan gasped. Divorce? Jack, no. We can work through this. Please, just give me another chance. Jack shook his head, his eyes filled with a quiet sorrow. There are no more chances, Megan. You traded 10 years of marriage for a fleeting affair. I deserve better. I deserve someone I can trust." Tears streamed down Megan's face. She made one last desperate plea. "What about our friends, our colleagues? They'll take sides. It'll be such a mess." "I don't care," Jack replied calmly. "I've been honest and upfront throughout this entire ordeal. I think you'll find that honesty goes a long way." As if to punctuate his words, Jack's phone vibrated with an incoming message. He glanced at it, a faint, knowing smile touching his lips. "That's Karen from the PTA," he said. "She's organizing a rally in my support. Apparently, a lot of parents appreciate how I've handled things. They're calling me a paragon of integrity." Megan's face crumpled. This was not how she had envisioned things playing out. She had never imagined her affair spiraling so spectacularly out of control. Her plan had been to end things with Adam eventually, and Jack would have been none the wiser. Now her entire life was imploding. "I think it's time for you to go," Jack said quietly. "Sarah and I have plans for the day, and I'm sure you and Adam have things to discuss." Defeated, Megan turned to leave. At the door, she paused, looking back at Jack, her eyes brimming with tears. "I do love you, you know. I never meant to hurt you like this." Jack met her gaze, his expression a complex tapestry of pain and resolve. "If you loved me, Megan, you wouldn't have. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. It's choosing your partner every single day through good times and bad. You chose Adam. Now you have to live with that choice." As Megan finally left, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs, Sarah emerged from the bedroom. She walked over to Jack, her face etched with concern. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Jack took a deep breath, gazing out at the beautiful ocean view that now seemed tainted by the events of the past few days. "No," he admitted, "but I will be." Sarah squeezed his hand reassuringly. "You handled that incredibly well, Jack. I'm proud of you." Jack managed a weak smile. "Thanks, Sarah. I couldn't have done it without you." As they stood there, looking out at the horizon, a strange mix of emotions washed over Jack. There was pain, of course, and anger, but beneath it all, a sense of liberation, a glimmer of possibility. For the first time since discovering Megan's betrayal, he allowed himself to think about the future. It wouldn't be easy. There were still difficult days ahead. The school board meeting, the divorce proceedings, the inevitable gossip and speculation. But Jack knew he would face it all with the same strength and integrity he had shown here. Megan and Adam had made their choices. Now it was time for Jack to make his, and he chose to move forward, to rebuild his life on his own terms. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, a fragile sense of hope began to bloom in his chest. This wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. The week following the fateful encounter at the Oceana Resort stretched into an eternity for the residents of Millbrook. The small town of 15,000 buzzed with gossip, whispers echoing in the aisles of the grocery store, and heated debates brewing over coffee at the local diner. The scandal involving two of Millbrook High's teachers had spread like wildfire, leaving no one untouched. At the center of it all was Jack Wilson, the wronged husband who had exposed his wife's infidelity in a dramatic livestream that had since become local legend. Driving to the emergency school board meeting, Jack couldn't help but replay the whirlwind of the past week in his mind. The parking lot outside the Millbrook School District Administration Building was overflowing, a clear indication of the gravity of the gathering. Jack spotted Megan's car and felt a familiar pang in his chest, a cocktail of anger, hurt, and something else he couldn't quite name. Taking a deep breath, he braced himself for what lay ahead. Inside, the tension was palpable. The usually spacious meeting room felt cramped with extra chairs brought in to accommodate the overflow crowd. Jack offered polite nods to several familiar faces as he made his way to his seat. He saw Megan and Adam sitting as far apart as possible, both looking pale and haggard. The board president, a stern woman named Eleanor Simmons, called the meeting to order. "We are gathered here today," she began, her voice cutting through the hushed whispers, "to address the recent incident involving 3 of our staff members. Before any decisions are made, we will hear from all parties involved." Jack was called first. As he stood, he felt the weight of every eye in the room upon him. This was his moment, not for vengeance, but for truth. Members of the board, esteemed colleagues, members of the community, Jack began, his voice steady and clear. I stand before you today not as a victim, but as a man who believes in the power of education and the responsibility we hold towards our students. He spoke of his 10 years of dedicated service to Millbrook High, presenting letters of gratitude from students and testimonials of the various extracurricular programs he had initiated or supported. Teaching isn't just a job for me, Jack continued, his passion evident in every word. It's a calling. Every day I strive to inspire my students, to show them the wonders of science and the importance of integrity. As Jack spoke, he noticed several of his current and former students in the audience. They offered encouraging nods, some even wiping away tears. I won't pretend that the events of the past week haven't been devastating on a personal level, Jack admitted, his voice faltering slightly. But I have always taught my students that character is revealed in how one handles adversity. I chose to meet this situation with honesty and dignity, not for myself, but for them. He gestured towards the students present. They are watching us. They are learning from us, not just in the classroom, but in how we conduct ourselves in all aspects of our lives. A wave of applause rippled through the room as Jack concluded his statement. Eleanor Simmons had to call for order before inviting Megan to speak next. Megan approached the podium, her usual poise noticeably absent. She glanced at Jack, then quickly averted her gaze, unable to meet his steady stare. I know I've made mistakes, Megan began, her voice barely above a whisper. The microphone screeched feedback, causing her to flinch. She paused, gathering her composure before continuing. I made a terrible error in judgment. But I am a good teacher. My students love me, and my art program has brought recognition to this school. Should my personal life really impact my professional career? Her plea hung in the air, met with a stony silence. Jack saw board members exchanging glances, their expressions unreadable. Adam was the last to speak. He approached the podium with a swagger that seemed jarringly out of place given the circumstances. Look, he said, leaning into the microphone. What happened between Megan and me was consensual. It was a mistake, sure, but we didn't hurt anyone. I've been nothing but an asset to this school since I arrived. The physical education program has never been stronger. As Adam continued to downplay his role in the affair, Jack noticed Megan's face darkening. It was clear she didn't appreciate Adam's attempt to distance himself from the situation. After all three had spoken, Eleanor Simmons announced a brief recess while the board deliberated. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife as everyone waited for the verdict. When the board members returned, their faces were somber. Eleanor cleared her throat before addressing the room. After careful consideration, the board has reached a decision, she announced. Mr. Wilson, given your exemplary record and the professionalism you have demonstrated during this difficult time, we see no grounds for any disciplinary action. You will retain your position at Millbrook High School. A smattering of applause broke out, quickly silenced by Eleanor's raised hand. As for Ms. Wilson and Mr. Reeves, she continued, her tone noticeably colder, your actions have brought disrepute upon this institution and violated the trust placed in you as educators. You are both hereby suspended, effective immediately, pending further investigation. It is likely that following a full review, you will be reassigned to other districts. The room erupted in a cacophony of voices. Megan broke down in tears, while Adam slammed his fist on the table in front of him. Jack, however, remained calm, accepting the decision with a quiet nod. After the meeting adjourned, Jack was surrounded by well-wishers. Parents clapped him on the back, colleagues offered words of support, and students shared stories of how he had positively impacted their lives. One shy girl named Emily approached Jack, her eyes brimming with tears. Mr. Wilson, she said, her voice trembling, I just wanted you to know that you're the reason I want to become a scientist. You showed me I could do anything if I put my mind to it. A lump formed in Jack's throat. It was for moments like these he realized that he had become a teacher, not for accolades or recognition, but for these genuine connections. As he left the building, Jack noticed a group of parents gathered outside, talking animatedly. He caught snippets of their conversation about a rally and their support for him. News of the school board's decision spread quickly through Millbrook. Jack found himself at the center of a public opinion storm, but unlike the scandalous whispers that followed the initial revelation of the affair, the conversations were now overwhelmingly positive. The local newspaper ran a feature story on Jack, lauding his dedication to education and his dignified conduct throughout the ordeal. The article painted him as a role model for the entire community, a man who had faced adversity with grace and integrity. A few days after the board meeting, Jack was surprised to find a crowd gathered outside Millbrook High as he arrived for work. Parents, students, and community members held signs with messages like, "We stand with Mr. Wilson and integrity matters." Karen Thompson, the PTA president, approached Jack with a warm smile. "We wanted to show you how much we appreciate you, Jack," she said, gesturing to the crowd. "You've taught our children more than just physics. You've shown them what true character looks like." Jack was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. As he made his way through the crowd, shaking hands and accepting words of encouragement, he noticed Megan watching him from her car across the street. Their eyes met for a fleeting moment before she quickly drove away. The contrast between their situations couldn't have been starker. While Jack was being celebrated, Megan and Adam had become social pariahs. They were conspicuously absent from community events, met with cold stares at the grocery store, and followed by not-so-subtle whispers wherever they went. Megan, in particular, seemed to be struggling with the fallout. Rumors reached Jack that she had tried to volunteer at the local arts center, hoping to regain some semblance of community support, but her efforts were met with polite rejections and thinly veiled disdain. Adam, on the other hand, seemed to be handling the situation with less grace. There were whispers of a loud argument he'd had with a parent at the local coffee shop, and Jack overheard some of his students discussing how Mr. Reeves had become irritable and short-tempered in the days leading up to his suspension. As for Jack, he threw himself into his work with renewed vigor. He volunteered to coach the school's science team, a role he had always wanted but never had the time for. Under his guidance, the team began to flourish. Late nights were spent in the lab working with the students on their projects. Jack found purpose in those hours, helping young minds explore the wonders of science. It was during one of those sessions that he received news that would change everything. "Mr. Wilson," Zoe, one of his brightest students, exclaimed, bursting into the lab one evening. "We did it. We qualified for the national championship." The room erupted in cheers. Jack felt a surge of pride as he looked at his team's beaming faces. It was the first time in the school's history that they had made it to the national level. As the excitement died down and the students began to head home, Jack found himself alone in the lab. He sat down at his desk, a mix of emotions washing over him. Pride in his students' achievement, yes, but also a bittersweet realization that this chapter of his life was drawing to a close. For several weeks, he had been contemplating a change. An offer had come unexpectedly, a prestigious teaching position at a specialized science and technology high school in another state. Initially, Jack had dismissed the idea. Millbrook was his home, his community. But as the days passed and the weight of recent events settled upon him, the thought had begun to take root. The next day, Jack scheduled a meeting with Principal Rogers to discuss his decision. The older man listened intently as Jack explained his reasons, nodding understandingly. "We'll be sorry to lose you, Jack," Rogers said, leaning back in his chair, "but I understand. Sometimes a fresh start is what's needed. You've done great things here, and I have no doubt you'll continue to do so wherever you go." The decision made, things moved quickly. Jack threw himself into preparing his students for the national championship while simultaneously making arrangements for his move. News of his impending departure spread through the school and town, eliciting a mixture of sadness and well wishes. 3 months after that fateful day at the Oceana Resort, Jack sat in his lawyer's office signing the final divorce papers. The process had been surprisingly smooth. Megan, perhaps out of guilt or a desire to avoid further scandal, had agreed to Jack's terms without much argument. Stepping out of the office with the divorce decree in hand, Jack felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It was truly over. He was free to move on, to begin his new life. The evening before his departure, Jack was packing the last of his belongings when the doorbell rang. He opened the door to find Megan standing there, looking small and vulnerable. "Can I come in?" she asked hesitantly. I just need to pick up the last of my things." Jack nodded, stepping aside to let her in. They moved around each other awkwardly, 10 years of intimacy battling the chasm that had grown between them. As she gathered her belongings, Megan's eyes kept flicking towards Jack, her mouth opening as if to speak, then closing again. Finally, as she was about to leave, she turned to him. "Jack, I know I have no right to ask this, but is there any chance? I've changed, I swear. I still love you." Jack looked at her, truly looked at her, for the first time in months. He saw the woman he had fallen in love with all those years ago, the woman he had built a life with. But he also saw the woman who had lied to him, betrayed him, and mocked him behind his back. "Megan," he said softly, "I'm sorry, but no. Trust, once broken, can't simply be pieced back together. Not for me, not this time." Tears welled up in Megan's eyes, but she nodded, accepting his decision. As she turned to leave, Jack stopped her. "Wait," he said, picking up an envelope from the table. "I wrote this for you. I think it might help us both find some closure." Megan took the letter with trembling hands. "Thank you, Jack," she whispered, "for everything. I'm so sorry for the pain I caused you." As she walked away, Jack felt a finality settle over him. This chapter of his life was truly closed. He turned back to his packing, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The next morning dawned bright and sunny. Jack stood on his porch, taking one last breath of the familiar air of his neighborhood. His car was packed for the long drive to his new home. As he was about to pull away, he heard a commotion down the street. To his surprise, he saw a crowd approaching, his students, led by the science team, along with several colleagues and community members. They gathered in front of his house, many holding signs with well wishes. The science team presented him with a scrapbook filled with photos and messages. Colleague after colleague came forward to share how Jack had inspired them or made a difference in their lives. Looking at the faces of the people he had lived and worked alongside for so long, Jack felt a wave of emotion wash over him. This was what teaching was about, not just imparting knowledge, but touching lives, building connections, leaving a lasting impact. Out of the corner of his eye, Jack noticed Megan watching him from a distance. Their eyes met for a fleeting moment, a whole world of unspoken words passing between them. Then she turned and walked away, and Jack refocused on the well-wishers gathered before him. After numerous hugs, handshakes, and promises to keep in touch, Jack finally got into his car. As he drove away, watching Millbrook shrink in his rearview mirror, he felt a mixture of sadness and anticipation for what lay ahead. A few miles down the road, Jack allowed himself a moment of reflection. The past few months had been the most challenging of his life, but he was emerging from them stronger, more self-assured, and with a clearer understanding of his own values. He was leaving behind the familiar, but he was driving towards new opportunities, new challenges, and the chance to make a difference in even more young lives. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, a sense of peace settled over Jack. Whatever the future held, he was ready to face it head-on, with the same integrity and passion that had seen him through the storm. Meanwhile, back in Millbrook, Megan sat alone in her small apartment, surrounded by boxes of her belongings. In her hands, she clutched Jack's letter, rereading it for what felt like the 100th time. Tears streamed down her face as she absorbed his words, kind yet firm, explaining why he could never forgive her, but wishing her well in her future. She looked up at the photographs on the wall, reminders of happier times, of the life she had so carelessly thrown away in a moment of weakness. As the reality of her situation truly sank in, Megan began to understand the full weight of her actions. She had lost not only her husband, but her home, her job, her friends, and the respect of her community. Sitting there, surrounded by the remnants of her old life, Megan knew her journey towards redemption was just beginning. It would be a long and difficult road, but as she folded Jack's letter and placed it carefully in a drawer, she made a silent promise to herself to learn from her mistakes and to become a better person. The sun set over Millbrook, casting long shadows across the town. In one car, a man drove towards a new future filled with hope and possibility. In one small apartment, a woman faced the daunting task of rebuilding her life from the ashes. And in between them, a community continued to heal, forever changed by the unexpected visitor of infidelity that had shaken their quiet town to its very core.